Welcome everyone to another edition of Moya Talks. We're still in April, Sustainability and Innovation Month, and we have a special guest. We're joined today by Jade Kearney, lean startup expert, co-founder of SheMatters, Techstar Seattle Accelerator, and Digital Undivided. Welcome, Jade. How are you?
Thank you guys for having me. I'm doing great. Today's a great day.
Excellent. Jade, would like to start with our guests talking about their career arc. How did you get to where you are, etc.
Sure. It's really interesting because I would, a couple years ago, not consider myself a tech anything. I was working in DC in diversity and inclusion management and professional development for many years. And after doing that, I became a teacher. And as a teacher, I would see like charter school networks in the United States pay so much money for ed tech solutions for English and math. And what would happen is they would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on these solutions. And the teacher didn't have time to learn it. The kids would learn it, but learn just how to have fun. And so they weren't being utilized, right? And they would change them every year and say, we're not getting the results that we want. So I said, I'm going to apply to the digital media design program at NYU for my master's. It's my second one. And so I can figure out how to understand ed tech and learning management systems and the whole nine. And so when I applied, I didn't think I would get in, but I was very honest in my application saying, hey, I'm not really a tech person, but I'm a great teacher. And I really feel like this skill could be used in the position that I'm in. I got in and I was like, oh my God, I got in, I got into digital media design and I don't know anything about tech. Luckily for me, NYU has amazing tutors and the professors are really understanding. And I started to submerge myself in things like coding and gamification and games and all kinds of things that probably were a part of my life prior, but I wasn't interacting with them in the same way, right? So I really enjoyed learning about this and learning different ways to teach people through technology. So that's how I ended up as a tech person, right?
I used to teach gamification at college.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
That's
we can talk about
awesome.
that later. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. Right, so that's how you decide to focus on the entrepreneurial side of technology, I imagine.
Yes.
Could you explain the concept of lean startup for a layperson?
Sure. So lean startup is really the best way to get the most out of a little bit of money when you are starting a company. So with lean startup, everything is about testing, right? In the shortest amount of time and the shortest amount of waste, right? So you can start with most your your most viable product. That's called an MVP, right? So say you were starting a company and you had an app. You don't need to build out the whole app. You just need to wireframe it and get some of your target customers, your target demographic, and see how they interact with the wireframe. Get their feedback so you can make quick changes and iterations so you can give the people what they want. So lean startup is just creating, like starting a business using the simplest forms of uh, testing and money, right? In the lowest the lowest amount of money you can to test your market.
And how do you reach out to firms? How do you help them to develop and find these strategies?
So really, I work with founders, right, in two capacities. I work with firms around entrepreneurial equity, right? So how to work with founders of color, uh, more specifically BIPOC founders, but founders of color, Afro Latinas, things like that. But when it comes to working one-on-one with founders, um, I go through their business model and we try to make it lean, right? What test are you using? What information are you getting from your customer? Who's your customer? How do you know that's your customer, right? If you're a tech person, what is the least what's the least amount of money you can spend on the best product to get the information you need to make the changes you need to satisfy the customer's need. And what usually happens is folks really realize that what they were creating nobody wants, or somebody wants it, but they want it in a different way. And so it's the best way to test your market, right? And that's what I help founders do.
Right, and you work both at Techstars Seattle and Digital Undivided. Could you explain us a little bit what are the differences in the companies that you have?
Sure. So I was the entrepreneur in residence at Digital Undivided for over a year. I'm currently the entrepreneur in residence at NYU, but I will tell you the difference in the companies. So at the accelerators, at Digital Undivided focuses on women or female entrepreneurs who are either Latinx women or Black women, right? So you get a different sense of camaraderie if you are a woman of color from Digital Undivided, right? Because you're in cohorts with people that look like you. Techstars Seattle are people from everywhere, and it's really focused on tech, and that's what I love about Techstars. Digital Undivided is kind of broad, right? You're getting expertise from all over and from many different people. And Techstars, you're getting that same type of diverse background, but really narrowed in on the tech pieces to certain companies. If you're not a tech founder, you can still be in Techstars, but you will be able to create some type of tech to make your solution more scalable. It's also Techstars, to me, really taught us how to pitch and how to raise money. Where Digital Undivided, I think, is more of a community to support you as you go through that process.
Right, excellent. Now, I will skip a question because this ties very well with another thing I wanted to discuss with you, which is
Okay.
during the COVID emergency, it was apparent that the digital divide was hurting students, right? You couldn't go to remote classes or attend school or work even if you didn't have the proper tools. So how do you see the opportunities, the solutions, the innovations that appear to close that bridge?
I think it was, I think it sent a shockwave through the United States, and it created a conversation that people were not having, talking about, socioeconomic status. That's really what it did. And here in the US, socioeconomic status is inextricably linked to race. So we had to talk about Black and brown people not having internet versus white folks and other folks who have more money having the internet, right? So I feel like what's happened since then are these huge initiatives to get internet in areas where they traditionally don't have it, or it's shaky, or it's not, it doesn't work well. You saw it immediately from the public schools. They did everything they could do to set kids up with internet. Then you saw it on the local government level, and it's just branched out from there. I think it was important. I think COVID was horrible, but I think some amazing things came out of the pandemic, shedding light on things that are normally really hidden. And you couldn't hide this because kids weren't able to go to school, right?
Do you see any opportunities for kids or young entrepreneurs from backgrounds that wouldn't usually work on tech appearing and reaching out for organizations like yours?
I believe so. I am happy that I can say that now. And what I really think is that we're on the brink of this thing that happened after the civil rights movement here in the United States, right? In the 60s and 70s, you had all of these protests, kind of like the George Floyd protests. And out of that, we got things like affirmative action, and we got all this legislation around improving socioeconomic status and opportunities for Black and brown people at the time. Then it was more so for Black folks, right? Now we're in that same space. On the heels of George Floyd and COVID and all of that, more people are investing in Black and brown communities. So you see STEM in schools in predominantly Black and brown neighborhoods. You see opportunities, you see grants, you see camps, you see financial aid. It is a time where if you have the information, you can really take part in many different tech opportunities, whether you're 5 or 50.
Now, in your position at NYU, you help young students imagine what they're going to do in the future.
Mm-hmm.
What are the needs that they identify, the new generation coming?
I think social media has really taken a toll on the youth confidence, right? Uh, Two things happen. They either don't believe that they can do it, so they have negative talk, or they want it right now, right? And so what I basically do is show them that anything can be done, but everything takes time. So you need to learn about the business that you're in, learn about the competitors that you have, learn about yourself and your capacity to be an entrepreneur, because there are certain things that come with that. Then let's talk about how fast, right? And let's build up your confidence. Yeah.
What's the biggest piece of advice that you give them if you had to single out one?
The biggest piece of advice that I give entrepreneurs who contact me for mentoring is, as long as you stay the course, your business may change, but you will be successful. And it's going to be challenging, and everything's going to be thrown at you. It's like you're trying to drive across country. There's a tornado, there's a hurricane, there's a rainstorm, it's hot, the tires, everything's going to happen. But if you keep going, you stop at the gas station, you get the car fixed, you pull over, you take a nap, as long as you keep going in that direction, you'll get there. And look, you may change your car. You might have had a Volkswagen and now you have a Honda, or you had a Benz and now you're in a Jeep. So what your business looked like at the start may look very different at the finish line, but you're going to be talking to your customers, your community members, and it will be the business that it needs to be to help the people that you need to help.
Excellent. That's beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Right. Besides working in technology and entrepreneurship, you co-founded SheMatters, which is an exceptional initiative, if you ask me. Could you please tell our audience about it?
Yes, SheMatters is a digital health platform designed to support Black mothers who experience postpartum comorbidities like postpartum anxiety and depression or postpartum hemorrhaging through community, culturally competent healthcare providers and culturally relevant resources. Additionally, we train healthcare providers on how to be more culturally competent to better meet the needs of Black moms. So this is also largely tech. We have an app that I created as my thesis project at NYU.
Beautiful. I was reading through some of the stories and that you have on your page. I will share it with the rest of the people later. It's really interesting what you're doing there.
Thank you.
Powerful. Now, before opening the floor and letting people ask you questions, you mentioned gamification. So I have like a question that I have, right? When I was teaching gamification, one of the debates that we had was that sometimes gamification is used to make boring things seem interesting, but not inherently interesting. And that's one of the biggest problems. How would you help people gamify their projects?
To gamify your product, you have to have an understanding of your customer or consumer. You can't just throw gamification, and that's, like a couple years ago, that's what everyone was doing, right? They were just throwing it on top of everything, like people are dying, throw gamification on to make this fun, and then like your child's failing, gamify it. You have to understand the how the consumer, how the customer is motivated. Then you can gamify. So if a person is motivated by earning badges, and that your customers are motivated by earning badges, then that's something you do. If they're motivated by encouragement, like little words that pop up along what you're doing, or they're motivated by I don't know, points or whatever kind of game, but you have to understand your customer. Everything goes back to understanding your customer. If you don't understand them, what are you doing? Right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I was teaching to teachers, which poses a different question, right? Because when you try to understand gamification or gamification from the perspective of education, you have to be aware that just like giving awards or giving rewards after a test doesn't
Mm-hmm.
make the learning process more appealing or more compelling.
Right. No, that's true. That's so true. And I was a teacher. So, like you said, giving rewards after a test, like there has to be encouragement along the way. And you have to figure out the best way to identify struggles, right, with kids and encourage them in that space in the struggle, gamify that piece of struggle, gamify the successes, and then it'll just be second tier. You won't even have to have a huge situation when they get an A because they've already been encouraged throughout the process, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. Right. So I'm going to open the floor because this is the most important part here that the audience go and ask questions. And I already see some hands up. So let's start with Noor. Please, Noor.
Hi, thank you so much for this talk. It's really, really interesting. Your lean concept, we should also use it in design and how we deal with our client, because the process of, showing the client the process of the project, we should not always, from concept to finish. We have to
Mm-hmm.
even be economic about how we show our project, like not finalize it. And I really like that talk, and we should learn from it. But I have a question about education, digital learning.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of debate about, physical education versus digital, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be digital from now on. But where do you see educational facilities in the future, like universities and schools? There's a lot of people doing self-education and using these tools to self-educate, and you even customize their education. Do you think
Mm-hmm.
there would be like a, a major, like there would be architecture school versus engineering, or it will be combined and customized based on that, and there will be the universities will extinct? What do you think? Where do you see that?
I think that you always have to have a live in-person component to whatever you're doing, because digitizing everything in education removes the opportunity for people who don't learn well this way. I don't learn well this way. I need to be in the room. I need to meet people.
Me neither,
But
yeah.
also, I think that learning digitally removes diversity of thought and respect for people's cultures in the way that you can learn them when you meet them in person. College is not the same online. One of the things that we get out of university is if you are from the middle America and you've never seen an Asian or a Black person, you go to college and we're everywhere, right? Like, oh my God, you're meeting people, you're learning people, you're trying new foods, you're doing different things. So it's not just about the educational experience and the curriculum and content, but about what you get from your world experience. I do think independent learning via YouTube or classes online, I think that's amazing for a group of a population who don't do well in person in class or who don't have the time. I know some moms who've gotten their doctorates online, they have 4 kids, right? Flexibility, I think, is what we should encourage. But if you have 4 kids, and you work, you probably don't have time to sit in the class, but maybe when the kids are gone, you do your coursework. So I think what digitizing education does is that it makes it available or more accessible for every kind of person, right? But I don't think that means scale back on in person. I just think it gives more opportunity to learn in different ways.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree.
You're welcome.
Lottie had a question. She asked, what are the top 4 recommendations you believe are essential to be a lean startup?
What are the top 3? One, know your customer. 2, be open. Test your models, test the market, right? And 3, iterate, reiterate, and iterate some more. So you know your customer, you give them a most viable product, your minimum viable product, you give them that, you get the feedback from the test, and you make changes quickly. Put it back in, you do it all over again. Boop, 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 boop. So you figure out what they really want, right?
Any more questions? Right. If nobody has a question, I have kind of a follow-up to what Noor asked. And it's like, what happens sometimes with this new education, this new digital education, is that it has the peril of maximizing the instrumental understanding of education. That you only educate yourself because you need a degree, right?
Yeah.
And yes, it's very nice. You can get it. You can go online and you can do a master online. I have one. And it's pretty cool. But as you mentioned, it's really important to go through the experience and to reshape the experience of education into something more humane about learning about each other.
Yeah.
I'd say
Jade.
at least one thing that also good about digital education, it's lessening the pressure of Ivy League and the competition of Ivy League, like, because everyone has to go through Ivy League in order to get best place. But you know, with digital education, it's a little bit making it a little bit better, I think.
And also, I think
sorry, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
No, what I wanted to say is, I think digital learning, what it does, if the conditions are correct and right, and everybody has the same reach to internet and computers, sort of levels the playing field.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, there is no doubt of that.
Well,
Right.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that also gives us like a very new way of learning, for example. And I will say this example. What happens, for example, if we have like an app that helps us learning something? Because I always remember this because I practice coding just by gaming in my cell phone in some apps like Grasshopper or Learning Python. And so you only spend like 10 minutes a day. But those 10 minutes a day, when you repeat and repeat and repeat, they end up being, like in a year, actually how to code. So it's kind of funny because something that can be like start like a game and ends up being something very useful in your profession. So that for me, it's like a different way, like a different approach we didn't have before, and maybe also very useful.
I agree with you. I'll be teaching entrepreneurship in South Africa this summer, and I'm super excited about it. And like being able to go there and teach lean startup for a week at the University of Pretoria is amazing. And I'm going in person, but the fact that there are apps, there's technology that I can actually have them simulate their businesses and test the market while I'm there, that's amazing. So I'm super excited about that. I love to go in person and work with people from around the world. It's like my favorite thing to do.
Beautiful. Jade, thank you very much. This has been a great talk. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, and whatever holiday you celebrate, happy holidays this weekend. It's a big one. Bye.
Big one. Thank you, Jade. Goodbye. And thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.